So, I learned something this past week, and it's a little bit embarrassing to have to admit the way that I learned this. But what I learned this past week is that apparently there's 1,000 little Star Wars podcasts out there, and they all exist in this really kind of, this intellectually incestuous little circle where they all just kind of, they don't really want to hear from anybody outside of it. So last week I did talk about this a little bit. I alluded to it and I said that I was eventually going to talk about this story, but not last week, not until more of the details came out about, what was going on and what was going to go on. And of course that particular story was the firing of actress Gina Carano from Disney's The Mandalorian. Now, I had previously talked about The Mandalorian and just basically stated that this was the Star Wars series that a lot of people had been waiting for a very long time. This was Star Wars, not so much in the the very social justice infused vein of the Disney sequel trilogy, but really more Star Wars in the original spirit of the original trilogy, episodes 4 through 6. Now, towards the end of the week last week, something happened on Twitter. There was a hashtag that trended. It was hashtag Fire Gina Carano. Now, there are a lot of Star Wars fans that, maybe I wouldn't even say a lot, maybe just like a smaller and more vocal little core of Star Wars fans, we've been on Gina Carano's case for a very long time. And there's lots of ins and outs to it, but really what it basically came down to was that, they wanted to be, little woke bullies and make Gina Carano do the things that they wanted her to do. And she just wasn't playing ball with them. She wasn't obeying them. And so the longer that you defy these people, the more obsessed that they become with it. And eventually it became obvious that the saga of it was just never going to end. They were going to keep after this woman into perpetuity until they finally got something that at least resembled what they wanted. And this last week, they finally got what they wanted. Disney said that they were going to walk away from Gina Carano as a star on The Mandalorian. Now, what it finally came down to was an Instagram story. It was a quick little thing that she had shared that somebody else had originally put up. But basically what the whole thing was, it was a meme that compared the way that the Holocaust began to the way that a lot of people feel that they're being treated in the United States right now. To kind of paraphrase it, what the meme said was that basically the way that the Nazis kick-started the Holocaust wasn't to take all of the Jews and put them in death camps right away. They started off with basically what was a campaign of social poisoning. They went out and they blamed the Jews for all the problems that were happening in Germany at the time. And a lot of people were just so willing to accept any kind of a scapegoat that they jumped on board with it. And really, when you think about it, like when you look at the historical climate, throughout Europe, the Jews were a very easy target. This meme basically said that the Holocaust began by making people hate the Jews. So much so that like even children would chase down Jews and beat them in the street. And there actually are documented cases of that. If you want a pretty good example of a source where you can find this kind of material, find these kinds of accounts, Hitler's Willing Executioners by Daniel Goldhagen is a very illuminating source for this kind of thing. It was a very long time ago, but the German people of the day, they can't be excused for their role in the Holocaust. It wasn't just, a small group of people who had political power who did it. In order for a project on that scale to happen like that, you had to have a lot of public participation, and indeed there was. So the meme concluded by saying that this is how it feels to be a conservative in the United States at this time. I'm not going to argue very much with that in particular. Maybe that is actually how it feels for a lot of conservatives. This is a meme that I neither wholly agree with nor wholly disagree with. There's little bits of truth in that, and there's a little bit of things that I would disagree with in it. But it's the opinion of the person who originally posted it, and apparently it shared enough of Gina Carano's opinion that she chose to repost it. And they do have the right to their opinion, regardless of whether or not I like it, regardless of whether or not you like it, regardless of whether or not anybody else likes it. And so all of these social media woke creeps were obviously just watching her Instagram like a hawk. And so they were able to get their outrage trending on Twitter, and at the end of the day, Lucasfilm came out and they released a statement that basically said, we don't currently have her under contract, we don't have plans to put her under contract again. And then went on to talk about, how her quote-unquote social media posts denigrating people on the basis of their race or religion were reprehensible. Which, by the way, when they put out that particular statement, that really was not very smart. They just, they defamed her. Now, that is actually libel, because when you actually look at the posts that people are complaining of, she's not denigrating anybody on the basis of race or religion or anything else. She was making an overwrought Holocaust comparison, and a lot of people didn't like it. And quite frankly, I don't really disagree with a lot of the people that didn't like it. I think I understand why a lot of people didn't like it. Now, what I don't agree with them on is whether or not this was something that Carano should have lost her acting role over. Or rather, I should say, any promised future roles. It wasn't really anything that Disney had ever come out and explicitly stated. But it did look like there were plans to actually give her her own little spin-off series, and this Cara Dune character could have been a very nice little side project for her for quite a long time. But alas, it looks like at the very least, as things stand right now, that is probably not to be. I mean, I wouldn't consider that set in stone. There are a lot of things that could change that. I mean, in particular, the fan outcry against Carano's firing. There are a lot of people that didn't like it. As a matter of fact, there was a video that Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy did on the Oscars YouTube channel this past week that got absolutely mobbed. So many people were on there criticizing her for the Carano firing that they basically had to go in, they had to shut down the dislikes, they had to shut down the comments. At the same time that was going on, Carano skyrocketed to the top of Internet Movie Base's list of most popular actors. And reportedly, thousands of people have canceled their Disney Plus subscriptions and specifically given Carano's firing as the reason why they chose to cancel their subscription. So there's no doubt about this. I mean, whatever it will hear from Gina Carano's lawyers about the defamation against her, by the Lucasfilm, PR hack, whoever put out that little statement, regardless of what they hear about that, they have certainly already heard from a lot of Star Wars fans who are not happy about this situation. And who knows, could further roles on a program like The Mandalorian, if they continue it, or on a show such as Rangers of the New Republic, if they do in fact continue with that, is that something that Disney might give up to her in the course of a negotiated settlement of a defamation case? As of the recording of this podcast, there's no indication that she's actually filed such a case yet. I mean, I think that it's very likely that's probably going to happen, but it hasn't happened yet. So a lot of that is speculation.